Hey, Mr. Sanders. I'm about to start my lesson 3 recreation. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I will be following along with the textbooks going from subheading to subheading, touching on all the different selection methods. And the item that I will be editing is going to be this caterpillar image. I will be manipulating I'll be using the selection tools to duplicate some of the features such as the eyes and the cheek pattern. So let's get started. All right, so I'll be using Photopia. Um, Going to my browser. I've already got Photopia pulled up. Let me share my screen to the browser like so. And I'm going to open from my computer the caterpillar image. All right, and so I have the image there, and now I'm going to be using the textbook step by step to use the different selection tools. Well, really as a list to make sure I'm not missing any of them. I know that there are the geometric selections, the freehand selections, and the edge-based and color-based. And because I know a lot of the purposes of them can kind of overlap some, I'm going to use the textbook to make sure I don't miss anything. So the first section was using the quick selection tool, and we selected that seashell. So instead of using the seashell, I'll be using the quick selection tool to select a portion of the caterpillar. All right, and so I use the hotkey W to select the quick selection tool, and I'm going to zoom into the rear end of the caterpillar. I'll be using the hand tool. I press the letter H to use the hand tool, and I'm scrolling over so that I can have a good view of what I'm trying to edit. So returning to the quick selection tool with the W key, I'm going to use it to select a portion. All right, so I actually got more than I was looking for there. What I can do is use the negative function to reduce the size of the selection, so I can get rid of the antennae, and I can take it all the way down to what I'm more satisfied with. So I've clicked the negative option, so now I'm just reducing the selection. In order to increase the sensitivity of what I am reducing, I can also change the size of the brush. I'm going to go ahead and change it to a 2 just so that I can make some more precise changes. Actually, that might be excessive. A 2 is a bit too much. So I'm going to undo that with Command Z and then move that brush size to about 8. Let's see how that works. Because I want to just go ahead and get it down to about here. Here I have the one moment. That's not supposed to be happening. So this is actually, I used the H key to switch to the hand tool. I didn't realize that I must have pressed it twice to switch to the rotation tool. Learn something new every day. I didn't know that that was going to happen. So I'm back in action. I'm going back to my quick selection tool, which is still in negative mode, and I'm going to get it down to the final portion of the caterpillar. Now, as I also see here, the selection is down close to what I want, but it's not quite there. It actually has left a portion unselected, so I can go back to the quick selection tool with W and now use the positive key or the addition key, unite according to Photopia. And what I'll do is select this little portion here and add it to the selection. And that will do it for me. So now that I have this rear portion of the caterpillar selected, I can move. I have several options for what I can do with the selection. For now, I'm going to see what's the next step in the textbook and consider what I want to do with the selection. So moving the selected area is what's next. The textbook at this point asks us to use the move key to move the portion that we had selected. I can do that, or I could also just hold the command key. So I suppose I'll do it both ways, just for kicks and giggles. So I can select the move key by clicking it, or by clicking V on the keyboard, and then I can move this portion. And of course, I see that my selection also has a portion of the black line. I'm not too concerned about that because ultimately I'm not going to be doing very much movement of this rear portion. I just wanted to use this to illustrate the quick selection tool. So I can move it with the move tool selected, or I can undo that and return to the quick selection tool with the W key, and then hold the command key and move it that way. And so I'm moving it now without actually going to the move key. So undoing that once again, because I'm actually going to leave it in the place that it's at. All right. So then the textbook has us selecting with the elliptical marquee tool. And so I will be using that to select one of the eyeballs of the caterpillar. We'll go ahead and deselect this selection that we made at the rear by using Command D, which of course would be Control D on a Windows computer. And we will use the elliptical marquee tool. Now, the textbook goes into a few different details about the functions of the elliptical marquee tool. I actually learned a little bit when I learned some new things about it in regards to the spacebar function specifically. So selecting the elliptical marquee tool is simple. You can use the M key or you can use the mouse. So I will be using the mouse to click on the elliptical marquee tool. And if it's not already showing, of course, you can reveal it by on Photopia, you click and hold, but on Photoshop, I believe you click the lower right-hand corner arrow for the drop-down list. All right, and so what I will be selecting is this eyeball right here, but my selection isn't really accurate here. So the way that I can change that, one of multiple ways that I can change that is by, for one thing, holding the shift key when I'm dragging my ellipses so that it becomes this perfect circle. Then, as I'm stretching it, I recognize that I'm not quite in alignment with the shape of the eye. So what I can do is, while I'm holding the mouse down, and in this case, while I'm holding the shift key down, I can also press the space bar. That will allow me to move the shape around that I'm making the selection with. So this was something that I wasn't aware of, and I was definitely glad to see that in the lesson because it was, it was a learning experience. And so now that I've moved it to the edge of the eye like I want it, I'm going to move it a little bit more just until I get the selection the way that I am interested in getting it. All right, and so that right there looks decent. So for this one, that's how we're going to select it. Let's see if the book has anything to say next. Moving pixels with a keyboard shortcut. So here it asks us to do what we just did a moment ago, which is move by using the command key or the control key on a Windows computer versus using the actual move key. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and use the command key to move this eyeball over here. And we're going to undo that because that looks very freaky. We're waiting on the option command to duplicate it. I'm questioning whether or not this is a way to go about it because having gone through the lesson, I know I could just do this now. So yeah, we'll do it now, and and then it'll just be a recap when it shows how to do it later. So what I'm referring to, of course, is the option of having the move key selected. So I press the V command key once again to select the move tool, and then hold the option key or the alt key on a Windows computer. And then when you click and drag while you're holding this key, your selection will be duplicated rather than moved, leaving a cutout behind. Also, rather than leaving rather than moving the selection space without moving any of the actual pixels in the layer. If you were to use the selection tool, so for instance, if I have the quick selection tool selected and I use command, rather the elliptical tool, and I begin to move around just by clicking without holding any buttons, any keyboard keys down. It's just going to move the selection frame and the marching ants, if you will. But if I hold the command key down, it will move the selected pixels and leave that part of the layer empty. And in this case, that looks terrifying. So we don't want to scare little children, of course. And so we're going to undo that. And so, to take it all the way back to where we were a moment ago, we're going to use the option key and the move key. The move tool being selected, we're going to use the option hotkey and the mouse to drag over, making a duplication. All right. So another thing that the lesson is going to get into, and it'll be a recap in a moment, is the scaling option. So with the selection made, we notice that the head of this caterpillar is bigger than the body pieces. And since I'm making this body piece have an eye, the body piece is smaller than the head. So I'll go ahead and shrink the eye as well. So with the selection made, I'm going to go to image, to edit, not image, edit. So I'm going to edit and I'm going to go down to transform. And there are several options for how to transform something. But the textbook touched on rotate and scale, if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to go with scale, which is what we're looking for here at the moment. And I'm going to hold shift to keep my scaling consistent instead of being wonky like this when I release the shift key, which makes it distorted. So I'm going to hold the shift key to keep it uniform. I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller than the eyes on the head. So I've released the mouse button, but I'm holding the shift key for actually no reason at all. I can release both of them. At this point, you can click and drag to move, or you can press the enter key to finalize the selection, then use the move key to move the selection around if you would like. Of course, if you do it that way, you're gonna have the cutout in the back. So there, that is that. However, this is an opportunity also to use the rotation command. So once again, going to edit with the selection made, we can actually go to the transform key, transform panel, and do rotate as opposed to scale. And in this situation, technically speaking, if we're moving this selection up or down or left or right, it would show the pixels behind being cut out. But in this case, we're just rotating it, so you're not going to be able to see any of that. So we're just going to rotate it some so you can tell that it's different from the eyes on the head, just for general purposes. So I'm going to press enter, or I can alternatively click the check mark. If I choose to press the X mark or the escape key, that will cancel this rotation and put me back at the place where I started before I clicked the edit rotation command, edit transform rotation command. So I'm going to stick with the command though and confirm it by pressing enter. So there we go. And my selection is still active. So I'm going to go ahead and press Command D to end that selection. All right. So I'm using Command and the plus and the minus signs to zoom in and out, or I can do Command and 0 to go to the standard zoom level. All right. So moving a selection with the arrow keys. This is pretty simple. We'll go ahead and make a new selection. Actually, yeah, we can go ahead and do that. We'll make this selection, but instead of using so we'll use the elliptical marquee tool again by selecting it, by clicking on it. But this time when we select the eye, we will actually use the Option key to drag from the center of the eye of the circle. So we'll go ahead and use the other eye on this caterpillar just to share the love. And I'm holding the Option key, and now I'm clicking and dragging. And as you notice, this is coming from the middle as opposed to the edge where it's like this. When you select with the elliptical marquee under standard circumstances. So once again, if I hold the Shift button, it will help me to make a more uniform selection. So by holding the Shift button, it's going to make that a perfect circle. And also, once again, by holding the space bar while making the selection, I can actually move the entirety of the selection. This is a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit less helpful when you're going from the middle, because once you move it, it's still a little bit difficult to measure. But I think that I'm satisfied with that right there. And I'm going to go ahead and make that selection. So here, I'm going to use the hold command and click and drag. Excuse me. I'm going to use the move key first, hold Option, then click and drag to duplicate this eye, just like previously. I'm going to drag this one onto the second part of the body of the caterpillar. And I'm going to once again go to Edit and Transform, Scale. I'm going to take that down just a little bit, holding Shift for uniformity. I'm going to press Enter to confirm that. And then I'm going to go again to Edit, Transform, and Rotate. And of course, there are several ways to do some of these things. I'm holding Shift. That will give you sets of degrees of turns. I'm going to press Enter and select that change right there. Now, actually, I'm going to undo some of what I just did because I don't want the background to cut out when I make this movement here, which is I want to move the selection using the arrow keys. So I can move it 1 pixel at a time or 10 pixels at a time. If I move it 1 pixel at a time, I'm simply having the selection made, and I'm using the arrow keys to cause it to move 1 pixel at a time. So I have the move tool selected, and I'm pressing the left right keys. That's going 1 pixel at a time. Alternatively, I can hold the Shift key and it will move 10 pixels at a time. 10 to the left, 10 to the left. I'm holding the Shift key and pressing the left key at the same time. Now I move it 20 pixels to the right because I just moved it 20 pixels to the left, holding Shift, pressing the right key twice. All right. Now, that is how that is how you move a selection using the arrow keys versus using the mouse. I'm going to use the mouse because I want to go ahead and position it on the other part of the caterpillar, the second body piece. So going back to the move key with the move tool with the V key, holding Option, I'm clicking and dragging. And once again, I'm going to Edit. This time I'm going to go to Transform, and I'm just going to do Free Transform. Oh, no, I'm not. I don't see it there, so I'm going to go with the usual. Holding Shift, I'm using the Scale option. I'm pressing Enter. As a matter of fact, I'm pressing Undo because I don't like where that landed. Transform, Scale, Shift, dragging it to be smaller. This time I'm clicking and dragging until I'm satisfied where it's located. Then I'm pressing Enter to confirm, and I'm using the Edit key again, Transform, and Rotate to make sure that I'm satisfied with the rotation. I'm holding Shift for uniform angles here. That's In this case, it's a little bit arbitrary, but it's an option nonetheless. So I'm pressing enter to confirm. All right, now returning to the textbook, let's see what other selection options there are. We've already selected from a center point, and we have duplicated a selection by holding the option key. We've done that quite a bit, actually. The magic wand tool is something worth reviewing, worth using. All right, so the book used a nice trick when using the magic wand tool. It actually told us to make a selection using the rectangular marquee tool, and so I just selected that by pressing M, but I pressed it once more to get the rectangular marquee tool as opposed to the the elliptical rather. So I'm now going to use this tool to select the antenna of this caterpillar. All right, and so what I'm going to do is use the rectangular marquee tool to select the area around the antenna. Then I'm going to use the W key to switch to what is currently the quick selection tool, but what I want actually is the magic wand tool, which is underneath it. So in this selection, I'm going to click, and that will select the program will discern what is actually inside of that marquee selection. So I'm going to use the hand key to move over so I can see a little better. And I'm going to use the quick selection tool, going back to that. This time I'm going to detract or subtract from the selection because I have too much. I have the corner of the caterpillar's head as well, and I don't want that. So I'm going to click, and that took away too much. So I'm going to undo, and I'm going to turn my brush size down to 2, see if that will help. This time I think it's not going to be overboard. So I'm zooming in so I can see better. And oh, what do you know? Yeah, it's still pretty sensitive. All right, let me try 1, and if 1 doesn't work, then we'll try a different option. Yeah, it looks like that this selection is so small that Photopia is not very capable of selecting it the way that I want. So what I'll do in this case, because I don't have anything in particular in mind for this antenna, it's just an opportunity to show the use of the magic wand tool. I'm going to make a selection with less in its background so that the program will be better able to select what it is trying to select, that being the antenna. So going back to the magic wand tool, I have used the rectangular marquee tool to surround the antenna, and that selection has nothing significant in the background, such as the head of the caterpillar. Now I'm clicking within this area, and it will select the antenna now this way. So now I have the antenna selected using the magic wand tool. Now I have to decide what I want to do with it. I believe I want to move it I want to duplicate it and place it on these 2 caterpillars, secondary caterpillar heads. So I'm going to go to the move tool, and I'm going to hold option, I'm going to drag to duplicate it. And that's going to be just fine. So it adds a little bit of a 3-dimensional effect. If you look at it, it actually, I'm going to duplicate it again. And this time I'm going to use the edit and transform tool and scale to bring it down a notch or 2. I'm going to deselect. So I think that it's interesting on this head. It's not coming into the green, but on these back ones, I decided to let it come into the green, and it gives a little bit of a 3-dimensional look. And that's just an interesting observation. All right, so continuing on, we have the lasso tools. Now the lasso tools are good for making hand-drawn selections. So what I'll be doing is using the L key to switch to the lasso tool, and I'm going to draw my selection around this cheek mark. That's what I'm going to go ahead and select using the lasso tool. So very plainly put, the lasso tool gives you the ability to just draw your selection. So I'm going to just draw it like that. Personally, I don't really opt to using the lasso tool very much, especially not when I'm working on a laptop like I am right now, because it depends a lot on steadiness of hand. However, there are options built in that help you to repair the unsteadiness of hand, if you will. So such options include holding the Option key on a MacBook or the Alt key on a Windows computer. And when you do that, it will subtract from the selection if you've taken too much, such as I have here. I've actually gone outside of the lines and I've selected too much of the green area. So I'm going to hold Option and make another lasso tool selection. This time I'm going to surround the part that I don't want to be here. When I release, it has subtracted that from the original selection. Likewise, I can use the Shift key to do the opposite, which is to say I can use it to add to the selection. So I'm going to start, I'm going to hold the Shift key, and holding the Shift key, I'm going to continue the selection where I believe that it has missed the mark. And this time I don't actually have to come all the way around to where I started. I can just make sure it meets up where the selection has already been made some. So like, for instance, there. All right, and so I've released the Shift key and the mouse button. All right, so now I have a decent selection of this cheek mark. I'm gonna go ahead and hold the Option key and get rid of some of this as well, just for the sake of being a little bit more precise. You know. So there we go. Now I'm using the Command key and the minus key to zoom out some, and now to zoom back in. Once again, I'm using the lasso key, the lasso tool, and the Shift key to add to the selection this area here, because I thought, I thought that should be rectified as well. You're holding the Option key to detract. See, I failed to close up the selection there, so it didn't work. All right, so there, that'll be good enough. Well, what we'll do, just like the eyes and the antenna before, we'll hold the Option key and drag this over. But let's see if there's anything else we want to do with the selection first. We'll go ahead and move this one. And we'll use the magnetic lasso tool on the next cheek mark. Now that is exciting. I actually do like the magnetic lasso tool a lot. It's a cool tool that, every now and then for me, some of the tools in Photoshop, just are useful to the point where it's like, man, how does it even do that? I don't know, from a programming aspect, somebody could just tell you the details of how it selects, how it makes the selections, but it's definitely very useful, these selection tools. So holding Option, I'm using the Move key. I'm going to drag to duplicate it. I'm going to go ahead and use the Edit and Transform. There's Free Transform, I just realized that. So I'm using Edit, Transform, Scale to move it down, holding the Shift key for uniformity. And I'm doing it once more, or rather first I'm using the check mark or the Enter key to confirm the selection. Then I'm using the Edit key, the Edit Option, Transform, and Rotate. And we're going to go ahead and shift that some. Okay, and as you can see, I actually should not have confirmed the selection first because it actually made the background cut out when I did that. So I'm going to go ahead and try it again, scale it down, then without confirming the selection first, switch to rotate. Rotate it some. Would you look at that? Okay. So what I'm finding is it's cutting the background when I don't want it to. My usual solution would be to use free transform. So edit free transform is allowing you to do all of the options at once. I can I use Control T to open up free transform. I use Shift and drag, and now I can rotate it like so. Pressing Enter to confirm. So that is one useful option when it comes to rotating and scaling at once. So we will use the magnetic lasso tool to select the next cheek mark. All right. The magnetic lasso tool is unique because it creates anchor points as you draw your selection, whereas the regular lasso tool allows you to make your selection entirely manually. The magnetic lasso tool makes it largely automated. So what we'll do is go ahead and switch to the magnetic lasso tool by selecting L and then pressing L again. And this will put us on the magnetic lasso tool. So you click once to begin your selection, and then you simply drag along and along and allow the program to automatically make its anchor points. Once you get back to where you started, you click, and there's your selection. You can also hold Shift while you're dragging, so it'll make automatic selections, but if you hold Shift and click, as a matter of fact, you don't even have to hold click, you just click and it'll make anchor points on its own. That way you don't have situations like this where it reads where you're trying to be. Like if I'm trying to be on the outside right now, but it's actually all getting inside of it, I can actually make an anchor point here and it won't make that mistake as much. All right, so deselecting that. I did fail to mention the polygonal lasso tool. So the polygonal lasso tool does very similar to the magnetic lasso tool in that it creates anchor points of a sort. However, you manually create these anchor points. So it's almost like what the lasso tool is whereas the lasso tool is manually free selection, the polygonal lasso tool is manually anchor point selection. So this is just for demonstration. I'm going to actually go back and make the selection finally with the magnetic lasso tool, or at least so I say. As a matter of fact, I'm satisfied with this one here. So we'll go ahead and use this switching to the move tool, holding option, dragging to duplicate, and then going to edit, transform, and we're going to go ahead and make those changes so that it fits our caterpillar, because we certainly want it to be looking right. When you edit a caterpillar, you gotta have it looking right. It's just something you gotta do. It's just something that you have to do. And so here, the program did allow me to use the scale tool and then the rotation tool without retracting from the back, without causing a cutout in the background. So I'm going to use the enter key or the check mark to confirm this selection, to confirm this transformation rather. Then I'm going to use Command D to deselect, which of course would be Control D on a Windows computer. All right, now we've used those selection keys. Now the final step that the book goes to is using the cropping tool to eliminate unnecessary background clutter. So in this particular image, we have no background no background clutter that we don't want. However, what we could say is that maybe we just want to keep we want to keep the face, our two new faces, and we want to keep this green part of the caterpillar, but we want to cut the last three parts out of the image because we want to show the caterpillar with three faces. This is what we want. So what we're going to do is use the crop tool by pressing the C button or by clicking it over here in the toolbar. And we're going to click and drag until we have the four parts that we want and as little of the extra as possible. So we're using that, we're making that selection with, not selection per se, but we're defining those parameters with the crop tool. We'll use the check mark or the enter key to confirm that cropping. And now we have that cropped. Let me undo that because Photopea actually wants to include background portions, and we don't want that, parts outside of the workspace. So I'm going to actually redo that selection, redo that cropping. All right, so here we are. And now what the textbook had our example as was some parts that were very much separated from the actual figure, and you could actually use the marquee tool, the rectangular marquee tool, to select them like so. And that would be all there was. It wouldn't actually be connected to the figure like it is here. And then you could use the erase key. Once you have made that selection, you use the E key, or you can click on the eraser and you actually just erase what you don't want. And so I see what is happening here is the image that I've uploaded has a sort of pseudo-transparent background. It looks like it's transparent, but in reality, when I go to erase, you can see the actual transparent background that Photopea is supplying appearing. If you see what I'm referring to right here. All right, and so what I will do is I will disregard that transparent background that Photopea has coming up, because in a standard situation, the background would just be matching the background that you see when you erase will actually be matching, the background that you see in the rest of the image. It might be white, such as it was in the assignment. So what I would do last, in order to get rid of everything that we don't want, I will actually use the selection tools to select this green part. I'm going to try the quick selection tool. We'll see how that works out because it's a little bit sensitive on Photopea. And I will use the standard mode for the quick selection tool. I'm going to go ahead and put the brush size up to 8. And see how this works for me. I'm just going to click once in the green area. Okay, that's selected too much. I think it's got the whole caterpillar again. All right, so I'll use the negative function, and I'll take this size down to about 2. No, not 1. Let me see. Let's go for 3. See how that works. I'm just gonna, oops, have to make it negative first. All right, so I've got it on negative, and I'm finding that Photopea is having a hard time handling it. Let me move the selection size. Let me move the brush size up some so that it has less of a hard time. Yeah, it's loading slowly. So I'm gonna go ahead and deselect that whole thing and try a different way. This is what this is the good use of the selection tools. You have a lot of options. I'm gonna go ahead and return to the polygonal lasso tool, rather the magnetic lasso tool. Go ahead and do it how I know it. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag and allow it to make its anchor points. I'm going to click here to make my own anchor point just to reinforce the selection that I want. So I'm also going to reinforce it right there on the corner because it's trying to drag me away. It's not handling this outside very well. It's not handling the edge of the workspace very well. There we go. Now it's getting it okay. And so I'm gonna have to go ahead and come back and fix the selection. But now that I have that made, I'm gonna press enter and see what I can do with this because that didn't come out quite how I wanted it. What I will do is press delete. That will actually delete it for me. And it's got me something close to just the back of the caterpillar. Here, I can do something more akin to what they showed us in the book, which is select the rectangular marquee tool and just erase what I see. Because I'm using the marquee tool, it's not going to erase the caterpillar, which is outside of the marquee. And I'm going to do that again here. And choose the eraser key tool by pressing the E key. And I'm going to deselect these. I'm just going to go ahead and erase. I don't even need to select them. Here's a good opportunity to use the quick selection tool rather than magic wand. And so I press W to select that. And now I'm clicking on this clear section of color. And I'm going to go ahead and delete. And that'll get rid of that. And I'm going to try it one more time here. I'm going to delete. And then I'm going to use the eraser key to delete that right there as well. So all in all, this is our 4-part caterpillar. I do think this is a decent opportunity to do a callback to a previous lesson. We can use the clone stamping tool to repair some of the damages. No, I will not be leaving. That's a good reason to use the hand tool to move around, especially on a laptop and in an internet browser. So I will use this clone stamp tool in order to repair some of the damages I've done to this background because boy, oh boy, let me tell you, I've damaged it. All right, so I'm gonna click here and see how that works for me. All right. C for the clone stamp, holding Option, I'm clicking the area that I want to pull from as my source. And then now that I've selected that, by holding Option and clicking, I'm gonna click and drag. Oh boy, nope, didn't do that right. I think I lost the tool. Holding Option, clicking and dragging. Oh, I'm sorry. The tool came off of the clone stamp. No, that's not it. I press C for the crop tool. It's supposed to be S for the stamp tool. Sorry, folks, my mistake. All right, here we go. This one's for all the marbles. We do want to start it in line with what is appropriate here. Right, okay, I see what's happening here. So I need to be in a selection. I need to be pulling from a selection that is long enough to populate this right here. And I'm gonna go ahead and increase the brush size too because I need to cover more area. I do need to cover more area. So here I can do a lot more. And I might be cooking with oil. That's what I'm looking for. So I've made my selection by holding Option and clicking once again. I'm going to line this up in the checker pattern as best I can see. And I'm going to make my selection. That's one. Let's see what else we can get for all the marbles. And what I'm doing is I'm aligning it. If you look at the upper right hand corner, I'm aligning my checker pattern with this block, this checker pattern that's already established. All right, and now that I've covered a lot of area, I can go ahead and lower the brush size to, I don't know, 8. See how that works. And that will allow me, no, that's too small. Let's go for 25. That's better. That will allow me to make more minute changes. Yeah, so sometimes it's just a game of patience. You have to, be diligent in making your selections as accurate as you want them to be. And if you do it right, you can get a satisfying result. If you do it a little less than right, you can get a result that gets the job done. But that's the benefit of using different tools. When you use different tools, you're able to make gains that you couldn't make by simply using a single tool. And so, with this not being an actual part of the lesson, I will go ahead and leave that there. I think what I would really have preferred to do is use the patch tool, the patch tool to drag a specific portion of the checker pattern down to holding command. Nope. That's not what I meant to do. I think the content aware patch tool is what I'm looking for. Right. And drag it down. Now I think if I'm not mistaken, that's going to edit the previous area as well. Okay, so all in all, selection tools are excellent for grabbing portions of an image and even allowing you to duplicate them. The transformation tools are good for changing the size and rotation of those elements that you selected. Here we have our caterpillar, now with extra eyes and extra antennae and fewer hind parts. I hope that this rather thoroughly covers all of the selection tools, and I hope that the recreation serves its purpose. All 50 minutes of it. I apologize for the length. I know that was extensive, I suppose. All right. Thank you, Mrs. Sanders. I'm going to go ahead and what I'm going to do actually is first I'm going to save the PSD file, which on Photopea you just do Command S or Control S to save it, or you can do File, Save as PSD. Then I'm going to also export it as a PNG. Rather, I'm going to go ahead and export as a JPG. I'm choosing to put it up to 100%. And that will secure the quality of this caterpillar. You gotta treat the caterpillar right, you know? It would be wrong not to. You know what I'm saying? All right, so I'm going to the Finder window, which has my download. I accidentally downloaded PSD several times while we were doing the work. But I'm going to just pull from those. That's one of the current PSDs. That is the current JPG. I'm going to put that into my folder, mark those as the finals, and call this one a project. All right. Thanks, Mr. Sanders. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop this one.
Nothing negative to say about it, but to allow you to